Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Woo! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be breaking down the new episode of The Bad Batch Retrieval, plus more teases about what's to come from The Mandalorian and beyond, and big updates about Star Wars Celebration. All this and much more in the episode. My name is Chris, and joining us is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
I'm loving this this NPR style and intonation we got going. I feel like we should carry it forward.
That was my slightly less projected voice because I'm in a small bedroom instead of a large studio.
No, I think we should just carry it forward. So hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, Hannah. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be back this week to discuss this phenomenal episode of The Bad Batch. Really gets into the nitty gritty of what's going on in the galaxy at this time period. And of course, we're just over, or just under, I should say, a week away from the release of The Mandalorian Season 3. And I'm really looking forward to breaking that down. And of course, looking ahead to a month and a half away when we'll be at Star Wars Celebration London. So it's going to be a great show.
Then jazz music plays.
It'd be like a slow jazz version of like the Imperial March. Be like, da, 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 da,
brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you. Anyway, I think that
you want to keep this going.
Yes, you're going.
Also joining us, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? I'm just gonna keep this going.
That's not NPR. That's something else, Ben.
No, we're keep getting quieter and quieter. So I think just keep this going. That way, Hannah, just deal with this however you want to deal with it. But yeah,
great ASMR.
Yeah, I'm gonna get really quiet, and you get even quieter. Just Hannah's just gonna be like,
excellent listening. This is excellent listening. Terrific for everybody listening to the podcast.
All you can hear is
missing the visual gags.
Also joining us, a guest that is in the bottom left corner of the screen. Hand from the Raeside.
G'day there. Welcome back to the Raeside.
Thank you for bringing the appropriate level of energy.
There we
Get
go.
us back on track.
Yeah, we're back in the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. We're going to have a great show. It's already started at a very chaotic level, so that always means it's going to be a fantastic 2 hours. Going to talk about Bad Batch and some a collection of odd Star Wars news, but can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it's a good mix that we've got this week. I'm liking it. So I think we should just dive. Yeah, I think we should just dive right in. So Chris, plug some stuff, and we'll start talking Bad Batch in just a moment.
Follow us at the SWU. Join our Discord. We've got something going on tomorrow night, right, Ben?
We do indeed. Another game night. I believe Fortnite won the poll, so we're gonna be doing some more Fortnite. Which is good because I've been addicted to Fortnite since the freaking last game night. So I've been preparing for this moment for 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So yeah, definitely go check out the the Discord and play some Fortnite on the Discord. And we do that every other week. So after that, we'll be doing some movie night, maybe. Who knows? The link's in the description.
Heck yes. Also, please become a channel member, and you can super chat with us as well when we're live. And if you're just listening, please leave us a review on the app that you're listening to us on. And if you ever head over to cultureslate.com/store, that's where you can get this Culture Slate Bad Batch logo t-shirt. cultureslate.com/store. All right. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. No. All right, let's dive into things. We're of course talking about the Bad Batch season 2, episode 10, Revival, written by Moses Zamora and directed.
Retrieval.
What did I call it?
Revival. That's Rebels.
That's
Where's that Clone Wars?
That's the Clone Wars. We're actually talking about the Clone Wars season 5 premiere. Revival.
Revival of Gonky.
Revival of Gonky. Revenge of the Gonky, in fact.
Revenge of the Gonk.
Yes, we are, of course, talking season 2, episode 10, Retrieval, written by Moses Zamora, directed by Stuart Lee, picking up where we left off last week, rescuing the Havoc Marauder from the clutches of Mako and his team of children, like with really Star Warsy names like Benny and Drake.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ben. Someone was gonna make.
I had to make that joke. Come on.
Yeah. So let's dive into this one. We'll begin how we always do. Go around the table, give some initial impressions, and Ben, as always, we're throwing it to you first. What did you think of Retrieval?
Yeah. So I again really enjoyed this one, and am I coming through it all?
Yeah,
You gave us a bit of a cliffhanger there. That was a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I was about ready to click the song.
No, please don't do that. Please, I'm having enough hard time speaking my mind as it is without having to talk over that stupid song. Anyway, like as I was saying, I really did enjoy this episode, even though it was more filler. It was more nothing. No, it's not. It was really, I think, a fun episode. I think a great follow up to last week's episode. And got into some really heavy topics, I think the Bad Batch is really going to, and honestly, set some stuff up that I think will come back to. If this is the last time we see Benny, I will be absolutely shocked. And also, as we mentioned, Revenge of the Gonky. Like
Right.
Full disclosure here, I heard chatter. I think it was on podcasts or Discord or whatever. People were like, "Oh, what if Gonky's on the ship?" And he plays a pivotal role in the next episode. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like, there's no way. Absolutely. That's bonkers. Like he's probably back at the base, back at hanging out at Sid's parlor or whatever else. Like there's no way that's going to happen. And then immediately, Omega has that great line. I was like, what about Gonky? And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense completely. So yeah, I think some really ingenious stuff in here. Some again, I'm going to keep saying, okay, excellent visuals, great music, great acting, just they hit all the bases here. So it was a really, really fun episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of went into an impression of Mako there when you were doing your filler thing. You kind of sounded like him, and the fist shaking. It was very much
just pretend this is a claw hand. Yeah, filler.
Yep. Hannah, what about you? What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna put my thoughts on whether I think it was good or I wouldn't say necessarily bad, but just what I really kind of rank it at the end of our discussion. But first impressions, I enjoy seeing the kind of storyline. This was it was a bit more of like a fun Clone Wars kind of storyline here, but So, something's it didn't connect for me. This episode and last, I enjoyed the character. There's quite a decent amount of character kind of insight that we get in these past 2 episodes, and in this episode with Omega, quite a bit as well. But I think for me, there's a lot of context behind why I'm kind of having difficulty with this episode. I think a lot of season 1 was already this story of, they're kind of going on those missions and doing these tasks and, get into trouble, then they'll figure it out and off they go. And I feel like season 1, it ended on such a point where it's like, okay, they've had that life. Now they have to explore something more. And I think that was my expectation coming into season 2. But season 2, we've had five episodes out of 10, I think, be they go to a destination, something goes wrong, they have to get out of it, which I'm not adverse to. I'm really not adverse to it all. But I think this style and format of this episode has been repeated to me personally in this season specifically too many times for my enjoyment, which has kind of tainted my perspective of this episode. That's what I mean. It's like it's not like this was like a bad episode. I was like, I'm just disappointed it wasn't something else, if that makes sense. But you know, it had some fun action, fun characters. Mako was kind of funny to laugh at. He had a funny face and voice, and you know, he was kind of a funny guy. So yeah, it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
It's not all bad. Put it on the poster, Bad Batch. It's not all bad. And Hannah Raeside. That's how they're going to win the Emmy this year.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Chris, what about you? Your thoughts on Retrieval, Revival, whatever the hell this episode is called?
I mean, it's tough because it's like whenever an episodic episode that doesn't really relate to the rest of the story, really hardcore, or develop things or move the plot forward. Whenever it's bad, I always go after them for doing episodic stories. But when it's good, I'm like, okay, that was fine. Like, I think all the way back to season 1 of the Clone Wars in the episode Trespass. That episode was very much an aside from everything. And yet it was good enough that Chuchi became a really fan favorite character that then showed up in this show. So I feel like this episode, despite the fact that it didn't really move the plot forward too much, it didn't really develop the individual characters, the principal cast of the show that much. It still was written well enough and had enough character development in the new characters, like the character of Benihana or whatever his name is, that, like, you know, it was totally fine. So I liked it. There was also some other stuff in the episode. I'm not sure what it was though. Like, it was kind of like communism or something. I don't know. It wasn't very obvious.
Wow.
It was like that scene in The Last of Us this week when Pedro Pascal is talking to his brother, and he's like, "So it's communism," and the brother's like, "No, it's not." And then his brother's wife is like, "Yes, no, literally, it's communism."
Okay, and weirdly, there is a scene in the new Ant-Man movie where Michael Douglas is like, "I know socialism is a loaded term, but like, what is this? All this like speaking about ideologies in our genre fiction."
Yeah, it's popping up. It's popping up, and I, for one, am here for it. Yeah, I went through a little bit of a roller coaster with this episode because I said last week, right? I was worried at the start of last week's episode it was going to turn into sort of the Martin Matten episode of Rebels, where it was just like, here's a kid that did a crazy thing, and this kid that did the crazy thing is just here, having, just here for a wacky adventure, and then someone walked into the background of Chris's frame, and now we all can't focus.
You know what? Usually we try to keep our listeners in the chat, but sometimes they just walk onto the show.
Yeah. Someone lose a bet.
Give you $10 to walk in there behind Chris.
So I when they didn't go with the Martin Matten style episode last week, I was happy, I was relieved. And so when this episode starts and like the first thing we see is that kid is Benny, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a Martin Matten episode again, isn't it? And through the first half of the episode, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm just watching going, I don't know if I'm vibing with this episode. It's just, maybe it's not really my thing. It's kind of harkening back to some episodes of Rebels that weren't my favorite. I guess this will just be the week where I'm not into the Bad Batch. That's fine. And then they hit the scene in the dining hall. And if there's one thing this show knows how to do, it's a dining hall scene. Because this is, I think, the third one, and every time it's spectacular. And once we got the scene where Mako comes in and he like torments the children, and we've just seen him eating all this food, and he's like, here's one bowl of soup for all of you to fight over. I'm like, oh no, this episode has a point. This episode is trying to do something. It's trying to say something, and I'm into it. And from that point on through to the end of the episode, I was all in. I loved it. I loved it to the point where, and not to jump ahead too much, but I've spent the last 2 days thinking, am I going to give this a 10 out of 10? And I haven't decided yet, but I'm leaning that way.
Wow.
I really
That's not
love
where I
this.
thought you're.
I really
This
love
was
this
a
episode.
roller coaster, man.
Yeah, I told you.
Yeah,
I
gee.
told you.
We were on it
I'm
with you.
all the way
Well,
along.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow.
So yeah. So that's where I'm at. I love this episode, and look, I've been on record as I've loved this season. I've loved the way they've done this season. I love that it's been a little bit more episodic. It's been a little all over the place, and it hasn't sort of just gone, let's do let's do a story that sort of runs through all the episodes very directly the way Andor does. That being said, I think this episode also really reminded me of Andor, and I think that's part of the reason why I liked it so much, is it was playing with similar themes and playing with similar
God.
ideas.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it.
As you were talking
makes
about
sense.
Oh my god.
And that's maybe why I liked it. Maybe.
Yeah. As you were
Oh
talking about
my
it, Hannah, when you're like saying, I'm not really into this one. I don't know if I like it. I'm like,
Is that your Hannah impression?
It is, yeah. I was like, I know why. It's an Andor
Oh
episode
my
disguised as a Bad Batch episode.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about
Yes.
I like, this is the thing. I almost don't know where to start with this episode, because the big thing isn't any one character or any one moment so much as it's the themes. It's this is what's happening everywhere in the galaxy. And this is what's happening. Where you get little pockets of places like this where there is someone taking advantage of everybody. And I think Tech says it later on in the episode, or I think actually Omega says it. This is kind of a microcosm of everything that's going on with the Empire.
Right.
It's a few people taking advantage of everybody, and a few people at the top being really successful, and everybody else being under their heel, under their boot. And even I was thinking, this is sort of like where Han and Kira are at the start of Solo. Quite literally, it's a bunch of children being put to work for some, crazy crime lord, or in this case, crazy mining dude, a mining baron. So Hannah, I'll throw it to you, and knowing that this is not your favorite episode, but what did you think of this idea of seeing this sort of pockets of tyranny as kind of a microcosm of the larger struggle against the Empire?
We've seen a lot of pockets of tyranny. That's what it's. We've seen it a lot. Not to say that they should stop showing us it, because obviously this is a massive part of the Star Wars timeline, the reign of the Empire and how awful they were to the galaxy and how they oppressed literally everyone in the galaxy. But I think maybe that's where my this pocket of mistreated townspeople, it's like, okay, that's pretty much 4 seasons of Rebels. That's a heavy thing of Clone Wars. And it was a lot in Bad Batch season 1. I think I'm a little fatigued from that story, that angle. I think I'm a little fatigued from it.
Would you say you're oppressed? Oppressed by
these
all
shows.
the oppression. You're depressed.
wheels of
Depressed by
oppression.
all the oppression.
Trotted on you.
Yes. Yes, I do. No, but I just, it's, I think it is a storyline that we, I was just messaging, not just previously, past 24 hours. I don't know why I'm being vague about the time. I was talking to a friend of the show, Din, and I was saying, you know what, I do like how Star Wars has always been and will probably continue to be a mirror to the fails of our society and it always will show the mirror to what is, what was terrible in our history, in our current present as well. It shows a mirror of it in the Star Wars universe, and then the audience can have more perspective and be like, oh yeah, oppressed being, greedy is bad. Oh yes, we can kind of have those, reinforced. So I can pull out the appreciation that, like, oh yeah, another group oppressed and that's bad, but yeah, I'm a little fatigued from the storyline. That's okay. I'll leave it at that.
That's fair. Mr. Marks, I mean Chris. What did you think?
That's Friedrich Engels to you.
What did you think of the way this episode handled these themes and these ideas?
I think this is big because, I mean, Hannah, you recently read Plagueis, which is not canon anymore, but you read it. And, that book was interesting. And I hope more of that kind of gets continued to be brought into canon, because it kind of showed the kind of societal conditions side of how Palpatine rose to power, how he was able to use him, and then Plagueis before him were able to use the kind of the greed of the industrialists class in the Star Wars universe to formulate the kind of both sides, the Republic and the Separatists. And you kind of have that greed in kind of in both areas, and like the Trade Federation and the banking clan and the Commerce Guild. Like, these are all like people who are exploiting other people, and they end up forming one of the two sides. So I think it's important that it's not like the galaxy was good and then Plagueis and Palpatine came in and then just corrupted it and then took over.
It's not 10 million Star Destroyers in the sky.
Yeah, it's not. Like, it had all these bad elements, and Plagueis and Palpatine just brilliantly used it to their advantage, used people's own greed to their advantage to gain power and to create the conflict that was the Clone Wars that then would bring power to the Sith. So I think that continuing to show, I think it was absolutely brilliant, that line by, I think it was Amiga towards the end of the episode, about how, like, hey, there's issues other than just the Empire out there in the galaxy. And if you get rid of the Empire, you're actually not fixing everything, because the Empire just rose within these conditions. And if you had a galaxy that had more equality in it, and had people who had a better standard of living and quality of life, and there was less oppression and exploitation of people, then it would be a lot harder for a system like the Empire and a ideology like the Sith ideology to take root, because people would be like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want an empire? My life's great. And so I think that's very adept, and that maybe speaks a little bit to why the First Order came around.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hope they get into that more on screen. I know there's some books about that, but I hope that on screen they also get more into, like, the fact that, the First Order came because you took away the Empire, but you didn't take away the conditions that created the Empire. And it's really cool that was called out in this episode. So I think that overall, bringing in and dealing with these things just kind of like they were dealt with in Andor, I think it's actually is important to the overall plot of Star Wars, and isn't just necessarily a throwaway thing where it's just there for the plot of the episode. I think they are trying to add some texture that's important to the Star Wars universe and underscore something that is important.
Oh yeah, 100%. And everything you're saying there allows me to take another opportunity to big up the Canto Bight stuff in The Last Jedi, which is still to me one of the most sort of underappreciated parts of the new Star Wars content that we've gotten, and it's the only one up until this really that's tried to tackle this idea that there's more to the Empire and this war than just the Jedi and the Sith. There are conditions out there in the galaxy that allow and that thrive under this system and the situation of forever wars. And so you have DJ, pointing out that, there's people profiting from both sides. They're profiting from both sides of the war. They don't care who wins as long as the fighting keeps going, as long as people keep buying more parts to build TIE fighters and X-Wings and Star Destroyers and, all the and Y-Wings and B-Wings and all the different, weapons of war that get used between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance or the Resistance and the First Order. And then, and you go back to what you were talking about, Chris, with the stuff with Plagueis and the banking clan, the commerce guilds, and blah blah. Same thing. These guys are profiting from both sides of the war. The Trade Federation, Newt Gunray is there on the Separatist Council, and yet Lot Dodd is still in the Senate going, don't worry about him. The Trade Federation is having both of their pockets lined. They're getting it from both sides. They're that's how you get to this situation. And so it basically, it's all and this, like we've been saying, this episode, it's a microcosm of all of those ideas just compressed into this one little mining town of Benny, Mako, Drake, and co. Ben, what do you think? What have you thought about what we've been talking about here?
Yeah, I have many thoughts. All of them are really interesting. The discussion we're having here, I think, from my point of view, I think it's interesting how I think even from when I was a kid, I understood kind of like the whole idea of not only that the Empire, as stuff in the real world happens, took advantage of a bad situation, took advantage of the corruption of the galaxy and made the galaxy into their own image. They also allowed corruption. They allowed things to happen. They created an environment where really bad people could gain power. And going back to the original ending for the saga, the Skywalker saga, Return of the Jedi, the whole idea that the first half of that movie, it has nothing to do with the Empire. It's all about taking down this criminal element, Jabba the Hutt, that's been allowed to fester in the Outer Rim and do all these horrible things. I think that's really interesting that even the original trilogy was addressing the fact that the Empire wasn't the only evil in the galaxy. There was so much going on, and the Empire was just allowing this stuff to happen. I like that we're seeing that kind of microcosm, just on a very tiny, small scale of this one guy with maybe 10 or 12 kids is oppressing them, is keeping them under his thumb, and just being a jerk for seemingly no reason other than just his own selfishness. And definitely a microcosm for the Empire. You could slot Marco in with Palpatine. It's basically the same thing, just on a larger scale. And you can obviously draw a lot of comparisons to stuff that happens in the real world right this second. So I like that. And I think this show is great because it's willing to do some really interesting social commentary and make kids think, honestly. Like, these shows are made a lot with kids in mind. And I think it's very, very important at a young age so people say, hey, this is how the world works. You may think this is Star Wars. It's not. Like, this is how this stuff happens. And, I think it's things. I also like the whole idea of, again, putting Omega opposite someone that's her age, another kid who is in a completely different scenario, and giving her a chance to kind of inspire him, but also giving him a chance to kind of show the other side of the coin in regards to, just making it, trying to get by. And the whole conversation about, stealing is not a skill. No, not if you need it, not if you need to steal. And the whole idea of that's some sort of commentary right there in regards to, like, we villainize people who steal. And I think, like, most of the time people only steal because they have to, because they're forced to, because they're in a really bad financial situation and they are just, pulled into that environment. You could put little Benny here in the same category of someone that's just really bad situation. And there's so many layers. You could pick all this apart and connect it to so many different things, not just in Star Wars, but in our own society. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, we see throughout the episode just how desperate Benny is, right? He grabs the granola bar off the floor and like dusts it off and then eats it. And, and the scene where Mako puts the bowl of soup down and like all 12 children like descend on it and are fighting each other for it. And, it's a great little, visual version of the idea of, the rich stuffing themselves and everybody else fighting for the scraps.
You'd like some more?
Exactly. And just the way, I like, again, we go back to sort of the end of the episode, and Omega says, this is happening throughout the galaxy. Like this is happening all over the place. We're seeing it all the time. And, now, and you almost wonder, like I've been thinking like, okay, the Bad Batches eventually are going to link up with Rex and they're going to do stuff there. Maybe that's not their mission. Maybe that's not their purpose. Maybe they're looking for more smaller ways that can help. And, that has value too. If I may quote another manifesto, that of my beautiful manifesto boy Nemec from Andor, the late great Nemec. In his manifesto, he says, freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they've already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the frontier of rebellion is everywhere, and even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. And remember this, the imperial need for control is so desperate because it's so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. That's this episode. That is this episode right there. So yeah, okay. Benny and Drake and their friends overthrowing Mako. Does that make a dent in Palpatine's war machine? No. Of course not. But it still shows that people are willing to stand up and fight for what's right. And the one of the most powerful moments in this show, like all of the Bad Batch to me, was when Benny shows up at the end of the episode with the little iPad with the quarterly reports on it, showing how much money Mako has made. And he's showing it, and then Drake takes it. Drake, who's been like, the cool dude. He's the one that everybody likes, the one that everyone follows. And he's the one that actually has, that actually gets a little bit extra from Mako. And he looks at it and he goes, this isn't right. And, all those revolting children living in revolting times decide, all right, it's time to stand up. And they turn on Mako, and it's just so good. It's just so good. This episode is brilliant. It was so very, very, it was, like I said, it was the Bad Batch does Andor. I love it. Love it. But yeah, I mean, that's the episode. That's the whole episode right there.
And maybe that's my issue.
Sure. Okay.
That's where we can, and I agree, and I love this whole way it puts into play and makes all these challenging questions and ideas like palatable, and it makes us think of these things. But it's like, that's it. That's it.
You're like, this societal commentary. Who needs it?
Yeah, I know. I sound like I hate. I mean, it's not learn anything about society.
A bunch of children uprising and saving themselves from tyranny. Meh. No, I mean that is fair. I sort of get. I do understand what you mean.
Here we go. Let me give you a metaphor.
Yeah,
because I don't want it to be construed that I don't
Hannah's
like
metaphor
those
corner.
Hannah's metaphor corner.
Hey, it's like you've ordered a sundae, a chocolate sundae.
You have my attention.
And this episode was only the chocolate sauce. So it's like,
I mean, I ain't complaining.
Yeah, it's just straight into your mouth. Chocolate sauce. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. It's delicious. It's like that's it's. I don't think I need food anymore because it tastes good and the sugar. But I'm just missing the bulk of
You
something.
want some
of
ice cream
actually-
and some sprinkles and
You-
some cherries and
yeah, which is, you know, it's, I don't know, more storytelling within this. So yeah, it's not that I have a problem that it's like, oh, I don't want it to be about politics. It's like, no, yeah, most of Star Wars should be about politics. It's more, I couldn't find anything else in the episode.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's this thing that's said about the Bad Batch that I don't agree with, but I understand where it's coming from. And that is the best Bad Batch episodes hardly feature the Bad Batch. And that kind of applies to this episode because Tech and Wrecker, they help, you know, they take out the two droids on behalf of the kids. And, you know, great bit of writing there, how they're like, we won't miss and all this stuff. And then they don't. It's great. I love it. Hunter lacks any chill in this episode. Like when that kid who sounds like Nelson from The Simpsons shows up, he's like, "Hey, who's working on the ship?" He might as well go, "Ha ha!"
I wish.
And he's like, what's going on here? And it's Wrecker who's like, he's like, "I got this. Let's improv. We can improv our way out of this. We were hired by Mako." And Hunter doesn't even like let this play out. He doesn't even see if this kid will buy it. He just jumps in. He's like, don't do anything stupid, kid. And then of course it turns into a whole situation. But you know, those three, by and large, they're sitting back. They're very much on the back burner in this episode. They're kind of there to get us from point A to point B. And then the real story plays out between Omega, Benny, Mako, and to a lesser degree Drake and the other kids. But yeah, so I
and there's not even a lot of action. There's not a scene where the kids rip Mako apart. It's just like he just literally falls off the thing by himself. He makes a swing and trips and falls.
Yeah, that was
over
weird.
The railing.
That
There was
weird
one
ending.
scene, the one time there's railing. I guess this just proves that railings don't do any good, because the one time there's railings over a bulbous pit still doesn't work. The guy trips and falls.
Did he go? I feel like there wasn't even a railing where he fell in the middle. It was just
there's railing. There's railing on it. That was OSHA approved. OSHA approved.
I gotta get back to this.
A bridge there.
OSHA
no
approved
problems.
child labor.
You think the Empire? You think the Empire is an equivalent of that? They're like, well, we have to. Palpatine's like, well, we must at least save face. We must pretend that we care. But no, actually, Palpatine wouldn't. Palpatine doesn't pretend that he cares.
I brought you peace.
Yeah.
Well, I figured the Death Stars, they were barely finished. Like the Death Star 2 definitely wasn't finished. So they just hadn't put the railings in yet. Those have been delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but Omega was very much the center of the episode. And again, we're sort of seeing Omega's eyes continue to be opened up a little bit to what the situation is really like out there in the galaxy. She's not.
She's a communist now.
She pretty much is. She wants to go around leading revolutions around the galaxy. But yeah, she's kind of there again, showing these kids in. Here's what I'll say. I kind of feel like the Bad Batch in this episode. We're not seeing them learn anything new, but we're seeing them teach what they have learned. As Yoda would say, pass on what you have learned. And I think that's what Omega's doing in this episode, just through her sort of her kindness. She's kind to Benny. She gives him her ration, and he sits there guiltily eating that chocolate bar. Oh my God, I'm gonna betray her. And she gave me a Kit Kat. Oh, this is great. But
I like the moment at the end of the episode where Tech is talking to Omega, and it's this moment. I feel like it was kind of a spiritual sequel to the scene at the end of last episode where they're talking, and it's not Tech, because all Tech's lines, up until this point, it's been very stereotypical. That Tech's the techno jargon guy. Wrecker's just there to, say, oh, I gotta blow some stuff up. And, Hunter gives out all the, the wisdom and whatever else. Not so in this episode. You have Tech, who is kind of very, I don't know, spiritual in regards to, he's the one talking about, oh, there's a lot of people like them, there's a lot of people like us, and this is our place in the galaxy. I love that. I love that Tech got a little mini arc here where he essentially learned how to be more human, more to express himself better, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when all is said and done about season 2, I can understand why a lot of people, including I think all the three of you, are feeling like this season is a little all over the place. It's a little inconsistent. It's a little bit sort of wonky. I feel like when we look back on this season, this arc, this series, I think this season will let me start that sentence again. When we look back on this series, this season, there we go, we'll sort of realize it was about the Bad Batch finding themselves and finding their path, which they didn't have at the end of season 1. And finding your path and finding yourself is kind of messy. It's kind of all over the place. And, what if that works for you as a TV show or not? Well, that's up to every individual to decide. I can't say one way or the other. But I think that's the idea that we're seeing play out over the course of this season. And, I said last week, I think Omega knows that eventually they have to either join up with Echo and Rex and get in on that fight, or they have to find their version of that fight. And this episode showed them what a version of that fight could be. And so I think if you're looking for this for a purpose in a larger story, I think that's what this episode does. I think that's the purpose it serves.
If I had a criticism overall, I would say that's great. Maybe do a little bit quicker and get to the point a little bit quicker. Overall, like, as much as I've enjoyed most of these episodes, it has I wanted the overall story to be more developed from this point, at this point in the season, more so than it is. I'm still sticking with it. I'm not gonna freaking boycott the Bad Batch. I'm not gonna give up on it. I'm here for the long haul, and I'll keep watching. And I'm invested in these characters. I think that's what keeps me coming back. Is the fact is the characters and the characterizations have been really good this season, and the writing has been really good. But I think the overall plot, I think, he's a little I'm still like, okay, where is this going? I think we've had a lot of really cool developments, but I want to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of the story and
get
where
to
we're
the
going.
ice cream.
There's some
chocolate
shots.
Sauce.
Somebody on Twitter posted all the shots that have yet to show up in the show yet that were in the trailers. And there's some wild stuff. There's some commandos and some Venators jumping out of hyperspace and really cool stuff.
Watch the last 6 episodes of the season be the best Star Wars storytelling we've had in years. Right on the cusp.
You mean the last 7, Hannah?
7. Was there? No.
This one's included.
Oh,
yeah.
No, but okay. So, season 1, Bad Batch, right?
Yeah.
Season 1 Bad Batch had these episodes where it wasn't directly linked to the massive overarching story. It was a not side mission type thing. We had the one, what was it called? Cornered, even Rampage. The one with the baby Rancor. What's his Mochi?
Mochi. Yeah, whatever his name is. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the episodes with Hera in it, at the start of those Hera episodes, they were still side missions essentially. But it just had so much more oomph to it. It was driving forward. We're getting to know them very specifically, getting to know the characters. It was very obvious then we're getting to know them. And it's, when at the end of the episode, at the 25-minute mark, when we hit the credits, we had learned a lot about the Bad Batch themselves and where the galaxy is at this point in time and what's happening. I'm not feeling that oomph in these episodes. Like it's same style, but it's missing that oomph. Yeah.
That's fair. It is differently. It is different from season one. I think that's completely fair. Season one definitely felt like it had more of a through line, even through some of those episodes that felt that were more episodic, more standalone. It still felt like it was sort of driving somewhere, or was sort of building off of something from the previous week. Whereas, yeah, this season is a little bit more eclectic and a little bit more like we're seeing a whole bunch of adventures.
And it, like comparing this to season one, like the through line that I'm thinking about that's not been present in this season pretty much at all is Crosshair.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of him, hunting them and being kind of the main antagonist. Like, that's what excited me about the Solitary Clone. Was like, oh, Crosshair's back. He's really interesting story. And we haven't seen him since. And I'm just like sitting here going like, I want more. Like, I think he's one of the most fascinating characters in this show. And I'm disappointed we haven't seen him up until now. I think he's going to come back. But, the lack of Crosshair is another. And for airing of grievances against Bad Batch now, that's one of mine.
Yeah. I feel like there's got to be another Crosshair episode coming somewhere down the line.
In our crosshairs.
Yeah, at some point. But look, season one, we're also just sort of being introduced to these characters, being introduced to this time period in the galaxy. Now that all's been done, and now that all the setup has been done, now that all the pieces are on the board, I think the showrunners are going, let's just play with them and let's see what happens. If we put these two characters together for an episode, what happens? Or if we put these characters together for an episode, what happens? If we put them in this situation where there's, some children being oppressed by a mining tyrant, what happens here? I think that's the sort of approach they're taking for this season. Which again, it's different. It is different from season one. And I suspect if the show has a third season, which I believe it will, I suspect season 3 will feel a little bit more like season 1, because we'll have sort of had the chance to sort of feel out all the different relationships. We'll have seen all these different corners of the galaxy, and the Bad Batch will have learned what they need to have learned from this season. Again, I think this season is about finding yourself and finding, something that keeps coming up through these episodes is the theme of home, and what does home mean to different people. And I think that's something that again, when we look back on this season, that's going to shine through. And also all of this stuff, finding yourself, finding your purpose, finding your home. What does home mean to you? I think once those questions are answered, to the extent that they can ever truly be answered, because I think those are things that people deal with for their entire lives rather than, just one season of television. But if they come into a little bit more focus, then I think the story will become a bit more objective based of, let's get a rebellion going. Let's start some unions amongst all the child laborers out there in the galaxy, or not even just the child laborers, the adult ones too. Not just the children, but the men and the women, and the people too.
Overall, I think if you had to apply a point to this whole season, at least thus far, because our next week could be a wild episode. It could change everything and make us all look stupid, which happens a lot. But it could, if I'm thinking back to that original pitch, the elevator pitch, the description of the whole thing was that these soldiers that are meant to be soldiers, they become mercenaries. This season has kind of delivered on that promise, but also simultaneously has worked us into a situation where showing us that they can't keep doing that. They're being mercenaries, and they suck at it. They are not good at being mercenaries. That's the point.
They have too much of a moral code. Yeah.
Their boss sucks, and they suck at their job.
Yeah. So I think.
What does it say?
Yeah, Chris, it's out of focus. We can't read
Didactic.
Frame.
Didactic.
Framed
Why can't I
moral.
pronounce this word? Didactic.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah. What you're holding up that sign, Chris? Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, a didactic is a story that has like a moral to it. Like they're trying to put some message across.
Yeah.
And so I think, Ben's talking about what's the point of the whole season. And then also this episode has very specific point that it's putting across too, as well.
This is what I've been saying. This is what I've been saying all season.
Chris's linguistic corner.
That's right.
Linguistics with Chris.
Yeah, that's just what I've been saying. That's why I love this season, and I think it's been a nice change of pace from the more plot focused story arcs of Andor and Obi-Wan and Book of Boba and Mando to a lesser extent. Mando's a little bit more episodic, but I'm loving this. I'm loving this season.
That's why the whole filler argument is so dumb and lazy. Just like it's not like you don't have to like it. If you don't like the episode, like that's perfectly fine. Like I am a strong proponent of just like emotions, and something can be great and everybody love it, and you just like, nah, this isn't for me. Like that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
But there is a point to this. There is something here, and it's not just filler.
Yeah,
I don't think filler can exist because it's not like legitimately they sit there go, geez, we really need to get to that Cody episode next week, but we don't want to do it this week. So let's just throw something in there. Like, I don't think that's how they approach it.
No,
I think they approach it of go, okay, how do we build out these stories and these characters and whatever the storyline they take, like what Ben, you just said, like you either like it or you don't. And, we have different opinions of whatever, but it's like, I really don't think, like I am not in the film or TV industry, but I don't think they sit there and go, okay, we need to get there in 3 weeks. What can we just chuck in the middle to get there? It's like, I don't think that's how it works.
Well, yeah, this is something we've talked about before. Like the whole concept of filler is outdated. It applies to a time when you had to fill 22 episodes and you wanted the big things to happen in certain weeks because those were the weeks that everybody was watching, and those were the weeks that you got nominated for awards for. And so I need that Crosshair episode. That's the best episode. I need that to air this specific week, so we have to do 2 episodes between whatever it is that we're doing now and then. And so then in that case there's a case for filler, and when it comes to this stuff, they're telling these stories because they want to. Again, like them or dislike them, that's up to you, but they're telling, the people are telling these stories, who tell these stories are telling them because they think they're valuable or they're entertaining or whatever their purpose is, whatever their drive is with the show.
I got news for you, but life is filler, okay? We're just filling time until we die, okay? Man. Okay, so just accept it and get over it.
This has been Ben's depressing corner. Well, I think speaking of corners, Ben, and things like that, I think it's about time for our favorite segment, everybody's favorite segment. You know it. You love it. It's time once again for Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. All right, Ben, what you got for us this week? What connections are there in the corner?
All right. Well, I did not. At least I hope I didn't disappoint this week. So literally, it's either one of the first lines or the first line in the episode is Wrecker's line saying, I quote, "I'm bored, I'm hot, and I'm starving." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I connect with that line because that's me every day. I'm bored, I'm hot, and I'm starving. Same, girl, same, Wrecker.
Okay, all right. So this is a connection with you, is what you're saying.
Look, it can be any kind of connection. It can be emotional connections, any kind.
Look, the segment is called Ben's Connection Corner. So if you want to
specify, I did not specify which kind of connections. Okay,
if you want to connect with the characters, by all means, fair enough.
Coming to Celebration 2025, Ben Connection Corner, speed dating edition.
Make a connection.
in the corner.
Actually, that sounds creepy. Connect with someone in the corner. How about no?
That's so good.
Ben,
Okay.
but you know what, Ben? For the next celebration, we have to pitch a Ben's Connection Corner panel where we'll just get you up there and have you connect stuff.
And I have to actually sit in the physical corner.
Someone gives you like 2 different, like a random Star Wars character and like an item in Star Wars, and you have to.
I think.
tell how
I
they
think.
connect.
It's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You just have to work your way from one thing to another.
Yes.
A great cosplay would be a Ben's Connection Corner cosplay where it's just a giant box on top of your head and you just kind of thing, and it's a corner of the box and just hanging over your head, and it's connection corner.
I feel like we're in the pre-show.
Yeah, really. I do too.
I love
Look,
it.
you brought it up, okay? I'm just milking this for all I can.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a mention of the Techno Union. They, of course, ran the mine until the war ended. Techno Union were the a-holes that had Echo for a while.
Wow, I didn't actually get that one.
For the first time that we met the Bad Batch was on that little mission to Skako Minor, where Wat Tambor is and his dudes. Hannah's impression corner. Here we go.
I thought you were having a stroke. I was like, what is
happening? Did we call someone live? Or?
Yeah. Oh, like, what's the Australian version of 911? What do I call it?
Triple O.
Internationally? That's really cool.
Triple O.
Okay.
There you go.
I think that's better than 911. It's easier to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did when they said, "Oh, we got to get in the stack, and we got 60 seconds." I'm like, "Is it actually 60 seconds?" So I timed it. And it actually is 60 seconds. It actually was exactly 1 minute from the time that Hunter went down to the moment that the gas went up. And
now that is detail.
Because
that's incredible.
That's my pet peeve in like movies and TV shows when they're like, "Oh, we have 2 minutes until this thing explodes," and then you're like counting screen time, and it's like 4 minutes.
It's a far cry from like freaking A New Hope, which is like 30 seconds in closing, and it's just like 2 minutes later, Luke's still flying down the trench. Like Star Wars is the worst offender of this trope. So yeah, you got good on you, Bad Batch creators, for actually doing your time.
Ben, I'm sorry to interrupt, and this may be veering back into pre-show territory, but Hannah, are you eating marshmallows? She's nodding. She's nodding guiltily. You know what?
It's quarter time. I'm having a snack.
You know what? Fair enough. And you know what? Good on you for picking a snack that doesn't crunch and won't be picked up by the microphone.
I remember the day that Hannah discovered this. She like came on to like one of our meetings. It was like, "Hey guys, I found out what I could eat on toast." Marshmallows.
I was really enthused by it.
Yeah. Just you don't want to get caught with your mouth full.
I've spent day and night finding the podcast snack. Okay, what the hell?
All right, Ben, continue.
Okay, this is a perfect segue. Speaking of food, in the scene where Mako is stuffing his face with all kinds of food. You can look in the background and it looks like there's a piece of, it looks like bread. I really don't know what it is, but it's kind of this oblong, like Twinkie shaped thing, like white thing in the background. It's the exact same thing that you see in Aftermath, the first episode of this series. Where it's the food fight scene and Omega is like standing up and she's like tossing it and she's like, "You better apologize to my friends," and she's like, she throws it at one of the clone troopers.
Wow.
Same thing. A lot of interesting food in that scene.
I like it.
And what else? Yeah, I already did. I made the Hotline Bling jokes. I can't do that anymore.
Thank you. And Ben, as a Torontonian, thank you for doing that so I didn't have to.
Right. I like the fact that we see a hyperdrive again in this episode, but it's like not like anything we've seen before. Like in Phantom Menace, you briefly see like this giant like Lego looking thing in the background that's supposed to be the hyperdrive. But I just like the idea of it's not this iconic part, it's just this thing in the background. So it's cool. Also Star Wars chocolate bar. We actually got a real chocolate bar in Star Wars. One very dirty and one unwrapped. So that was interesting. And
good.
I also got some.
They need to sell those at Galaxy's Edge.
Chocolate is canon.
Amen. I got some heavy Temple of Doom vibes from that final scene over with, rope bridge over lava just screams Indiana Jones. So more indie references.
It's almost like there's an Indiana Jones movie coming out or something. And
Yeah, there's something in the water over there at Lucasfilm, right? Any project they're working on, they're just walking around humming. Da, 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 da.
So this next little bit is Ben's Ben fell down a voice acting rabbit hole and made a lot of notes.
Okay.
So here we go.
Nice. Here we go.
So I realized that the guy that references voices Mako is named Jonathan Lepau. And he has I've never heard of this guy before, but he has an incredibly impressive resume when it comes to Star Wars voice acting. Did additional voices, unspecified in Star Wars Resistance, was the Ordo Moon Dragon in Replacements. Played B-20N in The Twins from Star Wars Visions. He plays Ayu from Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. He played Gunji in Tribe. And then also he will also play RJ-83 in Young Jedi Adventures coming out later this year. So all over the place. And additionally, we have Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Benny Borrow. My other Benny here. And he also voiced Captain John Vander, aka Gold Leader, in the Star Wars Rebels episode Secret Cargo.
Okay.
Wow.
And also he's had some other credits too. Like that, they're all like additional voices in like all the movies and stuff like that. Like these guys have been around.
And Drake was on Degrassi.
There you go. There you go. And thus that concludes Benjamin.
You have to go by Benny now, Ben.
Yeah.
You know that? Benny with an I.
Benny with an I. Well, this concludes another edition of Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. All right. I think that's the first time the Ben's Connection Corner has been as long as the episode discussion. So good stuff. Good stuff, Ben. Well done. Well done. All right. I think we'll leave the Bad Batch there. But before we move on, we'll go around the table one more time, give some final thoughts and scores out of 10. And Hannah, why don't you start us off? Final thoughts and score out of 10 for Retrieval.
Unfortunately, I think my expectation is cutting me down a little bit to not enjoy this episode as much as I probably should have. It is very kind of Clone Wars, help out someone in need. I like those kinds of stories, but like I said, I'm almost a little fatigued from the Bad Batch. It's a fun watch. I don't think I'll run back to watch it again anytime soon. But I really can't. It's not like anything bad happened in it either. So I'm gonna give it a. Oh, this is so scary. Okay. Lepau, let's give it a 6 out of 10.
Lepau. All right. 6 out of 10 from Hannah. Ben, what about you? What are you gonna give this one?
Ooh, I don't know because like I said, I did enjoy this episode. I'm not saying it's my favorite of the season by any means. I think there's been a lot of strong ones this season that have really connected with me. But also it was an episode that I really, really did enjoy. I liked the messaging. I enjoyed the character work. I enjoyed the writing. And I think for an episode that was kind of a part 2, kind of a continuation and something that like wasn't super like relying on the plot. We really didn't do a whole lot. We're literally just trying to get off this planet. We got stranded on the last episode. I think it was really strong. I think it gave us something with these characters I think is really going to play into the rest of the season probably and give us some really interesting stuff in the future. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 from Ben. Lepau. Chris, what about you? Final thoughts and scores out of 10.
I don't know. I think I'm going to chalk it up to like a taste thing. that I like this episode better than some of the other episodes that are kind of more disconnected from the overall plot of the season. And I think it comes down to like, if I'm gonna, if they're gonna do an episode that doesn't have much to do with the overall plight of the galaxy and also isn't really big character development for the characters and their interpersonal relationships with each other and themselves and their own personal arcs, I'd rather them do kind of a people-based story versus like, okay, they're just gonna go and do this type story. Like, they're just gonna go and race in a race type story for me didn't really cut it. They're just gonna go find this artifact in a mountain. Like that didn't really cut it for me either. But they're just gonna go witness revolution. That did work for me because it was kind of more like people based and I liked that, and I thought that was more engaging and interesting to me personally than just there being a race or there being like a mountain that they're raiding for some energy source mysterious thing. So yeah, so I don't know. I think it's taste. I think some people might like, the stories I mentioned better than this. And I think I'm just glad that they're including both. I think that it's a good idea to include both for everybody so that when they are off the big major things, like the stuff with the Senate or the stuff with Cody and Crosshair, when they're off that, there's something for everyone. So I think that's great. So because I personally liked it and I thought it was executed well, I will say this is a 9 out of 10 for me. It's about as good as the show can get without it being kind of like blowing me away. It's just right under that.
All right, 9 out of 10 from Chris. Another Lapow, if I ever heard one. Yeah, I said off the top, I absolutely adored this episode, and I've loved this season. I've loved how bold this season has been in the sense that it's gone. We know what your expectations are. We know what you think this show is going to do after season 1, and we're going to go off in completely different directions. We're going to do stuff that's linked more by theme than by plot. And I felt that way about the first half of the season, and I'm getting those same vibes. Here we are in the back half of the season. And this episode, I think, to me, embodied the best of that. And it really, like I said, it took me on a ride from thinking I wasn't going to like the episode to ending the episode. I actually got to stay up and watch this one at 3 a.m. the way I like to, having the episode be over at 3:30 a.m. and just feeling like so energized that I wanted to go and run around and just be like, yeah, Bad Batch, let's go. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. Lapow, 10 out of 10.
No way.
Wow.
That's shocked me to my core. We should have like a golden buzzer whenever you give. I felt like a big song should have started in 10 out of 10. Like a big song should play.
I can promise a buzzer in a future episode because we might be building one for another purpose.
Oh, okay.
It's so ominous. That's so
yeah,
Chris.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
such a Chris thing
We're gonna
to-
press this
to
buzzer,
tease.
and the world will explode.
Yeah. Sheesh. Okay. All right. I trust
In the
you.
works.
Yeah.
All right, got a couple of scores in the chat. I think people are punishing me because I said I would feature them last week and then forgot by not posting their scores because there are way more people watching.
What's your score? Dan.
Matthew Hardy goes with Hannah, gives it a
Yes.
6 out of 10.
Me and
Joel
Matthew
Davis
agree.
lining up with Ben with the 8 out of 10. Nobody wants to go quite as high as Chris or myself with this.
You got me
episode.
half a point higher. I was going to do an 8.5 after I watched
8.5.
it.
All right, Fishing Vibes TV coming in here, 7 out of 10.
Vibey.
Splitting the difference. Din F1.
9.5. I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess what you would score it.
Nice.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
All
Got a
right.
couple more scores in there. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's hit a few super chats because they're all Bad Batch related and they're all from Joel. So
Let's do it.
First up, Joel says, saw a good video saying this episode in Andor are moving Star Wars away from the great man theory by showing that not all evil comes from the Emperor, while not all good comes from Luke and friends. Yeah.
That's very Disney as a whole. Like Disney as a whole has moved in that direction. Really everything on Disney Plus. Like I felt that way about a lot of the more recent Marvel shows on Disney Plus. I felt that way about the Disney animated films for several years. Like they're really moving away from the here's the villain archetype, here's the hero archetype. It's more like the system is the villain and it's pitting people against each other. And some people make more humane choices than others, but ultimately the root evil is the system.
I'm not gonna be part of your system. I threw it on the ground.
So much of Star Wars is, I mean, literally the chosen one, prophecy thing, and that's what so much fiction is based on. I think it's good that Star Wars has broadened its horizons from that type of storytelling.
Yeah, well, that's what Joel says sort of in his next super chat. He says, I think the entire saga, episodes 1 to 9, have never been great at showing the minute conditions of the galaxy, including the prequels that did more telling than showing. Non-saga stuff has done better in general. Agreed. Episodes 1 to 9, they're a fairy tale. They're a myth. They're legend. They tell a very specific type of story. That is heroes and villains and that sort of thing. And it's the stuff outside that is set within that galaxy that has filled in the gaps and taken ideas that are shown and alluded to in the films and said, what if we expanded that out? And Bad Batch has done that beautifully. Andor did that phenomenally. Mando, Book of Boba, Obi-Wan, they've all done variations of that, and the show that did that the most, Clone Wars back in the day. Clone Wars ultimately was all about that sort of idea of taking the throwaway line, you fought the Clone Wars from A New Hope and turning it into 7 seasons and a movie. Joel also says, I get what Hannah is saying. You can have great commentary and themes, but not always great execution in terms of story, plot, and characters. Yes, but I would push back a little bit here and say we've had that great execution in terms of story, plot, and characters across the series. And this episode in particular is paying off on what we have already learned. So we don't necessarily need to learn anything new about Tech Hunter and Wrecker in this episode, or even Omega, to see the impact of what they have already learned on this theme.
Yeah.
Do you want to, Hannah, because that one is sort of directed at you, do you want to comment on it some more?
Thank you for agreeing.
Sounds good. All right. Next up, Joel also says, I'll say this about season 2 of Bad Batch. I've seen other animated shows made for kids on Disney Channel do what they are trying to do it better.
Star Wars-itis.
Star Wars-itis?
Yeah, Star Wars-itis. Sometimes, like if something is Star Wars, I feel like it sometimes in certain aspects actually can be a lower quality than other things, because the fact that it's Star Wars almost like instantly raises the quality automatically, or raises the interest in it. So a lot of times shows that aren't Star Wars actually need to be better to sell and to be popular and to get people to watch them, because no one's going to just watch it because it's Star Wars. There has to be another reason. So I very often will see kind of more original ideas and things that are less popular actually end up being better quality than certain Star Wars things, because of that very reason. Sometimes Star Wars, doesn't have to quite hit that mark because they know people are going to watch it anyway, as long as they hit that mark enough.
Joel gives Amphibia, Owl House, and Gravity Falls as examples of shows. And final one, Joel says, I hope the post-Endor era shows us the material conditions of the galaxy to show how the First Order rose and how the Lando's fleet came to Exegol.
Yes.
I mean, this is, I talked about this with the One Way Out episode of Andor. the whole idea, like the theory behind the fleet in Exegol, there's more of us, Poe, there's more of us, is really powerful and really beautiful. And I think Andor and Bad Batch have done such a better job of executing on that and making it feel meaningful. Because, I mean, that moment when the kids realize that they have the power and they surround Mako on the bridge, like, that's really great stuff. That was a really impactful moment and really sort of powerful scene to see play out on the Bad Batch.
I just had a thought. I've just had a positive thought about this episode, which I really enjoyed.
Okay.
That I just have to interject in. So as you were talking about that scene, I was like, what I enjoyed is that the kids themselves, the youths, really, they weren't kids, they were like youths. They weren't like, like this is the big evil boss that like runs here. Like they were like, oh no, Mako gives us jobs. Like, oh yeah, like they're very fear-driven compliance was interesting, and that was kind of a new perspective. I kind of felt a little bit, often it's like, everyone knows Jabba the Hutt is the big evil bad guy, and you want to stay away from him. But like the way that, it wasn't just Mako is the bad guy, and everyone knows it. It was
Benny tries to save him.
Yeah. Like that was interesting. That was interesting. So
6.5 out of 10 now.
Yeah, honestly, 6.5. Not bad.
It's kind of
change it.
Kind of like people will often support, both with their mouths and with just their work and whatever, the systems that oppress them.
Yes.
And we're made to believe, as the kids are in this episode, that those in power have our best interests in mind, which, as we see with Mako and as we see all the time, they don't.
Yeah,
I think that
was a good take.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some news here. What do we got? Star Wars Celebration. You're maybe feeling a London calling coming up in about a month and a half.
Wow.
It's just around the corner. And we've got some more guests announced for that, which we'll get to in a moment. But the bigger news, the bigger celebration news, bigger than the celebration that's happening in a month and a half's time, is the news that the next Star Wars Celebration will not be next year. It will be in 2020.
Thanks, I hate it.
It will be in 2025. Lucasfilm just sort of burying this in a blog post about like the 5 reasons you should go to Celebration, and one of them is basically you won't get to next year. It'll be in 2025. No like specific date or location has been confirmed, announced. How do we feel? How do we feel about taking a year off from a celebration? Ben gives it 2 thumbs down.
Well, I've been crying up until the start of this podcast, and I just proposed myself in time.
It's hard because it's like, from like a financial kind of standpoint, like I don't know how profitable these things are because it is a lot to run. But they've had 2 in a row. They're not usually back-to-back, annual things. I think there's going to be maybe a little less content next year and a lot more content in 2025. And I'm sure there's something with the film schedule that they will probably announce this celebration that probably lines up with it better. So there's all the like logical reasons where it's like, that makes sense from like a business corporation point of view. But then, it's very sad. I wish it was annual. I really wish it was an annual thing.
Yeah. Like I want it to be next year because I want to go. Like I'm hyped for London. I've got all my stuff together. I'm all ready to go. But then hearing this news, I'm sort of like, now I have to really enjoy London. I can't just enjoy it. I have to really enjoy it.
Right.
Because there's going to be a longer wait until the next one. But I will say, having the gap, I do think leads to a better convention. And I think about the best celebration experiences. I think about Celebration Anaheim in 2015. I think about Celebration Chicago in 2019. I think about Celebration Anaheim last year. Like those all had at least a year in between them. You know, there wasn't one in 2014, so the 2015 one was extra special. There wasn't one in 2018, so the 2019 one was extra special. We all locked ourselves in our homes for 3 years between Celebration Chicago and Celebration Anaheim. So Celebration Anaheim was just like, it was magic. I mean, Hannah, you remember we were in the Lucasfilm Showcase panel. When they showed that video about how wonderful Celebration is,
streaming.
Yeah.
Like that was just to preface what was happening. Like that wasn't even a part of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm streaming. I was like, this is the most surreal thing.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, having the year off, I think it allows them to, you know, look at what worked, what didn't, and you know, try and improve. And I'll say probably the worst Celebration experience, which, you know, even the worst Celebration is pretty freaking good. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I would say Celebration Orlando in 2017, and that was the third in 3 years. And so I think even the organizers were a little bit burnt out there. And so there was
major mistakes made.
Yeah. So I think the gap, as much as it sucks that we don't all get together to throw a big Star Wars party in 2024, is probably for the best in the long run. So 2025, whenever it may be,
whenever
we're meant to be together at Star Wars Celebration.
But see, like going back to Anaheim, not Anaheim, going back to, you know, the last one we had prior to this, Chicago, like when they announced at the end of that, oh, Anaheim in 2020, little did we know, but like they were planning on like doing Anaheim immediately after the next year. And I was like, oh, this means Celebration's going to be every year now. They're trying to make it every year, and this is going to be great. And I'm still like selfishly like mad that we're not going to have Celebration every year. That you know, they've kind of dispelled that thing, and Celebration will be less of a definite thing. Is kind of continue kind of the cycle of just like holding on hope. Like, where's it going to be? Warwick, tell us at the closing ceremonies. Where's it going to be next, and when's it going to be?
Maybe
like
Go ahead. Finish your thought, Ben.
No. I'm kind of rambling here. I'm just saying I'm a little upset, obviously, because I was like, I'm not going to London. But I'm like, I can make it next year, no problem. I don't care where it is. They'll put it on the moon. I'll find some way to get there. I don't care. But now I'm just like things. But like, I get the argument. I kind of agree with it against my own biases that like it is special to have it, you know, not as often. Also, maybe it ties in with the whole idea of, this is just some personal theories that I have, that maybe they're going to try to set it up in the off years for D23, maybe, since it has been in Anaheim Convention Center, could be returning to that. I'm not so sure they're going to want to go back to Florida anytime soon for reasons.
Hey, look, Ben, by 2025, Florida could have a new governor because Ron DeSantis could be president. So let's just.
In which case, do you have room for me in your house? Because Hannah, Dominic, would you take in a poor soul, poor American refugee?
Let's all just imagine that hellscape for a minute.
Oh God!
Chris, you want to hold up that book again? For anybody,
this is not even a gag for this episode. It was just within reach. It was just the one book that was the closest to me. And I'm like, wow, how relevant is this?
Yeah, for everybody that's listening, every so often when Chris has been talking about the sort of the politics in the episode, he's been holding up a copy of the Communist Manifesto. So
I was just like, how is this right here?
Guys, you have to watch. Sometimes you just gotta watch the stream. Okay, you gotta watch this to get the full effect. You're not gonna. You're gonna hear giggling. You're like, what are they? What are they laughing about?
If Power of Myth or Hero with 1,000 Faces was within reach, it'd be on the stream too. But unfortunately, those are on in the other run.
Yeah, mine's on a floor above me. So
I don't even know what words we've said in the past minute, so I don't know what's happening. I've got a book over there too.
I got books.
Well, Ben's anybody got a question about Kanan or Hera? I've got a new Dawn right here. So yeah. Anyways,
Oh,
the point I was going to make real quick was maybe they're going to get on like a 3-year cycle, one stateside, one overseas, 1 year off, and then just sort of rotate through that. I feel like that's a pretty fair way to do it.
So Sydney 2026 confirmed.
Sydney, we go.
Bring it.
Yes.
Bring
I am dead
Sure.
serious. I'm not just saying this for Hannah's sake here. Like, I don't want them to continue. Just go back to the Anaheim Convention Center. Nothing against Anaheim. I love Anaheim. I love that convention center. But keep going around. Keep going to different places, because for some people, Celebration may be a once in a lifetime thing, and it's so awesome to have Celebration in your neighborhood. Go to Paris. Go back to Germany, go to Japan, go to Australia, go to all these amazing places, because I want to go to these places and I want an excuse to go to Australia, and do that. So
I will say, if the fact that it's in London again is the deciding factor for me, probably not going unless I pull a Chad and end up going like 2 days before. But like, if it was in Japan, it would be, or Sydney, it would be a lot harder for me to say no, because I've never been to those places and I really want to go. Whereas I have been to London before. So, it's just like, do I really want to make that really long, complex trip to do something I have done before in a lot of degrees? Like it's tough.
For me, the answer was yes. So I will see everybody.
I can't remember the last time you missed a celebration. Like you've gone back so far that I literally don't even know where they were at that point. Like Indianapolis, I don't know.
No, the first one, Denver. The first one. I don't go back that far. The first one I went to was the first one in Orlando, which was,
but I don't know
Celebration 5, back when they still numbered them.
I don't know where one. I think one was in Denver, but I don't know.
One was okay, I know this. I got this off the top of my head.
2, 3, 4. I got it.
No, it's more fun watching Chris trying.
I know.
To
I make the point that it's like so long ago that I don't remember.
I don't want to know. I want to see Chris.
So that's why it's impressive that Dominic has been to all of them since I couldn't remember.
Here's the thing. Here is something, real conversation that I had with my mother just a couple days ago. She asks me, goes, "Okay, who's going to Celebration?" And I'm like,
"You said me."
I think just Dominic. She's like, I knew it. I knew it was. I knew he goes every time. I know it.
So good.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I can't not go. But yeah, okay. Celebration. I'm gonna list them all for you right here. Watch this. This is. I need this to be a trivia question next year so I can reclaim the championship from Ben. Denver 99, Indianapolis 02, Indianapolis 05, LA 07, London 08. No, London's also 07. Japan is 08. And then
did you say Germany?
No, Germany's coming up. Because it goes.
I want to hear Chris guess.
Then it goes Orlando in 2010, Orlando in 2012, Essen, Germany in 2013, Anaheim 15, London 16, Orlando 17, Chicago 19, and then Anaheim 2022. There you go. That is Celebration.
I didn't know about was LA, ironically.
Well, I mean, it's 2007. It was
but
long
it was before I moved there.
Yeah, long before. So there we go. So that's Star Wars Celebration. Coming to London, though, we will have Carl Weathers, aka Grief Karga, Brian Herring, aka BB-8, Samantha Lane, aka First Order Stormtrooper, who is actually going to be signing for free at Celebration. Warwick Davis, aka Wicket, Annabelle Davis, aka Mims Ufgood and Willow, Harrison Davis, aka Ewok in The Rise of Skywalker, and Denise Go, aka Deidre Muro in Andor. One thing that will likely be very featured at Star Wars Celebration London, seeing as an episode, the weekend will be bookended by 2 episodes.
The weekend is going to be at Celebration.
Yeah, it's actually it's gonna be a great show. It's him and I are going together. It's like a Toronto thing. We're going out there.
Charter plane for all the Torontonians.
Yeah, exactly.
Toronto Knights.
Yeah. No, it's we're gonna have. Shut up.
Torontonians, cloners.
We got some new character posters for the Mandalorian season 3. These things look pretty good. We got ourselves a Din and Grogu one. We got Bo-Katan.
Oh,
And we got
Oh.
Grief Karga.
wow. Dead.
I'm loving the style, the sort of the Mandalorian season 3 marketing. It's been pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. I'm liking it a lot.
What's the word? Yeah, I agree.
It's green. That's what it is.
Agreed.
Everything's green.
Green.
It was the colors of the first season was kind of like a sunset, like orangish hue to it, and then season 2 was all very like blues, sky,
I like the way you say
night
blue.
sky, moon, lake, and then season 3 is like this weird like alien green glow with like stars and clouds and
Not stars and clouds.
it's not like
Look, I
just
still want
made,
to figure out this lake though. I still want to go back to this lake thing. Hashtag lake watch. Where's this lake in the Mandalorian?
Hashtag Lake Watch. There's a new Mandalorian season 3 TV spot that came out this week. That's actually features quite a lot of new footage,
along with like 5
What's
others,
it?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little like over the like let's edit and re-edit the same trailer just in a slightly different order of the clips, like and post 2 a day for 2 weeks. It's like, oh
Yeah.
jeez.
Well, that's why the one that came out today was almost all new stuff. You gotta check it out.
Was it? Okay, maybe I do.
Yeah, it was. There's some good ones lately.
Yeah, it's been good. Sticking with the Mandalorian, we might have the runtime for the season 3 premiere. Take this one with a grain of salt because I've seen this reported everywhere, but as best I can tell, the sourcing on it is some dude. This is Cryptic HD Quality on Twitter is reporting that the runtime for the Mandalorian season 3 premiere is 35 minutes.
What?
And 16 seconds.
What? What?
Which is about as long as some of these Bad Batch episodes.
I know.
Here's the thing.
That's short.
Here's the thing. People were freaking out about this, so I felt the need to do some research into this. And I went and took note of every single length of every single Mandalorian episode. And then I went through and picked out the shortest ones. And Chapter 17, as it will be called, we don't have a title for it yet, will be the 3rd shortest episode of the entire series. So it's we're talking 35 minutes and 16 seconds. The Tragedy was 34 minutes and 45 seconds. The Child, Chapter 2, was 33 minutes and 52 seconds. But this will be the shortest premiere because The Mandalorian Chapter 1 was 41 minutes and The Marshal was a whopping 56 minutes. Probably, I think, the longest episode of the entire series. So it's taking a step down, but still in the ballpark of it just could be a short episode. And there's been a lot of short, there's a lot of 50 minutes and there's a lot of 30-ish minutes episodes. Like there's several of those. So who knows?
I mean, I will say that the one that's closest to it for premiere season 1 definitely had some shots that could have cut a little bit sooner. There's a lot of walking in that episode that I remember. So perhaps if you took all the walking out of it, that story would have been like 35 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, look, ultimately, they should, I say this every time we get a runtime, they should set the runtime according to how much story they have to tell. And if they feel they have 35 minutes worth of story to tell, 35 minutes and 16 seconds.
And what they're not telling you, what they're not telling you is that 20 minutes of that 35 minutes will be the previously on The Mandalorian.
Previously on Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
And they just show that one episode from Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. Basically.
My approach to this when everyone's uproar on social media is Tales of the Jedi were like 9-minute episodes.
Yeah.
They were like incredible complete stories and it was like 9 minutes long, 7 minutes long. It's like
Same with
there's
can't judge it with the time.
Like pretty much like go back to Clone Wars. Like Clone Wars episodes, almost all of them, except when you get into season 7, there's a little bit of wildly varying degrees of things because they were on streaming and not network TV, but most of them, like almost all of them, were like 22 minutes.
Yeah,
every single one of them. Yet, yeah, when I think of them in my mind, like they're completely different. Some of them feel like they're an hour long, and that's just the way the story is. So I really like, people are like, oh, it's streaming, it can be as long as you want. Yeah, exactly. Some episodes don't need to be. Just because you can make an episode 2 hours long or an hour and a half or 3 hours long or whatever doesn't mean you have to. Sometimes all you need is 35 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you need 35 minutes to tell the story, use it. If you need an hour, use it. I will say, when I first saw this news, I saw it on Reddit, and it was formatted a little bit weird, and so I thought the headline was season 3 premiere, an hour and 135 minutes long. And I was like, that's not a TV episode, that's a movie. And then I realized the post actually said was The Mandalorian S3E1, but the line break was after the E. So it was just 1 space 35. And so I was like,
oh my God.
I just read it wrong. I was like, what?
You read it wrong on Reddit.
I read it wrong on Reddit, which would not be the first time that's happened. But again, like, not to disparage this
that
person.
can and does happen.
Yeah. Not to disparage the person who posted this, but like, it also, like, I'm always a little skeptical when the number of episodes and the runtime for said episodes gets leaked on social media, because there have been some wild ones. I think there was supposed to be 9 episodes of Book of Boba Fett at one point. The Obi-Wan Kenobi finale was going to be like 97 minutes at one point. Like, if I'd say at this point, if I was betting on it, I'd say it's more likely to be the 35-minute thing. But if we turn on Disney Plus at 12:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on March 1st, and it says the episode is 47 minutes, for instance, that also wouldn't shock me either. Moving off of Mandalorian, but sticking in the same sort of range, Rosario Dawson is out there talking about Ahsoka, and she's suggesting that the show might not premiere until the fall. She was interviewed by Today, and she said, Ahsoka, yeah, that's probably going to come out in the fall. We're going to have Haunted Mansion come out on August 1st, and I just did some beautiful Disney Plus commercial voiceover, and I'm like, have I just become a Disney princess? So Ahsoka in the fall. I'd kind of been thinking Ahsoka was going to be a little bit more summer.
Yeah, same.
And then Skeleton Crew would be the fall. And I suspect that was probably the plan at one point, just given that we're having Bad Batch and Mando run at the same time. Because I feel like if they had known that Ahsoka was going to be pushed back to the fall when they were laying out the schedule for Bad Batch, maybe they do something like do the first 8 episodes, stop, do the Mandalorian, wait a couple of weeks, and then do the back half of season 2, like break it up into parts the way Netflix did with Stranger Things and that sort of thing. Just because I think having both shows on at the same time is going to be a lot of fun. But it's also like, what do I watch first? Like, where do you go first? Like, it's gonna kind of, something's gonna get lost in the shuffle those weeks, and it sure as hell ain't gonna be the Mandalorian.
I don't understand why, with all this time that they've had to kind of move stuff around, maybe push things back and whatnot, how they haven't figured out how to just space the seasons in such a way that, it just fills up all the weeks in a year, and maybe there's a few breaks, but all the overlapping, it just doesn't make sense to me. But it's like, why not just wait and space it out correctly?
Yeah, well, so I've heard through the grapevine that they intentionally don't set release dates for things until the last possible minute, because they want to be able to change it if they feel that they're going to be up against, the competition's going to be too stiff, or they something else gets delayed. They want to have that flexibility, which I get, which is basically what I mean. That's what they did with, which is what they did with Andor, right? They pushed it back 3 weeks so that it didn't premiere the same week as House of the Dragon and Rings of Power.
And that's fine, like, if you're gonna do that, but it's like, what you could also intentionally set them to times that make sense, and then if you have to change it, just change it a little bit instead of just having it be random.
Yeah.
Because not only is there overlap, say, for example, we're about to go through a period of time when we're having Mandalorian and Bad Batch on top of each other. We just came through an area where there was nothing. We didn't have any new show. And we pretty much know that Bad Batch was ready to go and was just kind of waiting around. And we expected it, a year before it actually came out. So it's just like, it makes you wonder, it's just like, why are they doing this? Seem like, why wouldn't you just push Bad Batch up or move Mandalorian back a few weeks? But I'm sure they have their reasons.
And now it looks like after Mandalorian, there might not be anything for a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm curious about is, I don't think we're actually going to be getting Skeleton Crew in between Mando and Ahsoka.
No.
I would expect Ahsoka in the fall and then maybe Skeleton Crew December 31st.
Yeah, I think Skeleton Crew's getting the Book of Boba Fett treatment where it's like, we said it's coming out this year, so it's coming out the last possible day it could, the last Wednesday. Yeah,
it's like like forever. It'll have the 2022, 2023, like with Book of Boba Fett. It was like what 2021.
It's
like it had in the thing,
like Christmas 2021. Yeah.
Well, it also, when you're like listing it out, like it says like Book of Boba Fett parentheses 2021. But all the episodes came out in 2022. Like the same thing with Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. So I think that's that. I mean, that's the thing is I think Skeleton Crew is going to get that last spot. We will have after Mando, there will be Visions, which is 1 week, and Young Jedi Adventures, which again, that's for preschoolers. So
which we are launching an entire another podcast network to cover that show, obviously,
yeah,
naturally.
Joel makes a good point in the chat saying, that there is a writer's strike seems to be looming in Hollywood. That is true. But
is that a thing?
Yeah, but it's
someone educate me on this. What does that mean? What's that?
The writers would go on strike, and so that there would be no more TV being written. So you could produce stuff that's already been written, but nothing new could be written. So Star Wars. Because they're not being paid. Writers not being paid enough. By the studios.
All right. Well, that's understandable. Sure.
Yeah.
They're only allowed to share one bowl of soup collectively.
But I was reading about this. Star Wars and Disney are apparently fairly well positioned to weather a bit of a writer's strike, which maybe that's why
convenient.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why they're holding back on releasing Skeleton Crew. Maybe they're anticipating the strike, and so they'll say, all right, let's push everything back a little bit so we can have as much content for as long as possible. Also, Jon Favreau said this week he's written all of season 4 of The Mandalorian, so that's just ready to go whenever they're ready to hit production.
What you get when you get too ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think Favreau's going on strike anytime soon. So,
well, but I mean, this is the other thing is would someone like Favreau, would the producers, especially ones like Dave and John, who are also writers, would they cross the picket line? This is the last time there was a writer's strike in 2007, 2008. There was this was with the show with the Daily Show with the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. For the longest time, John wouldn't cross the picket line, but he eventually did. And so they would basically improv the show. And his reasoning was the rest of the crew wasn't being paid, so he needed to do a show to pay the rest of his crew. But would Favreau and Filoni, even though they've written all of the Mandalorian season 4, would they go and say, all right, we'll cross the picket line with these scripts and produce them? We just can't edit them while we're shooting them. That would be the sort of the thing that can't be done, is you can't have any writers, can't make any changes to the scripts. So I don't know. Only John and Dave know what they would actually do in that situation, and they'd probably face all sorts of pressures from the higher ups at Disney and that sort of thing. But we'll have to see. The strike may or may not actually happen. And if it does, maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's 8, 9, 12 months, the way it was last time. So.
And related to this, and maybe we'll get more into it next week, is it literally just came out but there's a quote floating around from Favreau basically saying, because people have been talking about a lot of like, we're working up to some kind of big end game for the Mandoverse, and maybe season 2 was even talked about as maybe that's the final season of Mandalorian. And Favreau basically said today, talking about Total Film, I think, and said, nah, no ending in sight. We're gonna keep making this stuff forever, and I'm not stopping anytime soon. And no, there's no end game. So like he's gonna keep going.
There's no end game. Sure there isn't, John. Sure there isn't. I don't think he has a date set in mind for when it's gonna end, but I think he knows where he's going.
That's very opposite from when like George Lucas and Dave Filoni and people like that were asked about Clone Wars, and are like, yeah, we know, we pretty much have written the story that's gonna end the show. Like they had written they had written that pretty much.
Pretty much.
They're ready to go.
We saw the drawings before we actually saw the thing. We had proof.
There it is. All right, that's the news. That's what we got. Let's get Mando posters, celebration, run times for the premiere, and a little bit of Ahsoka release date.
I'm really glad we had a stacked show this week. We had something to talk about, because it's just going to be, from here on out, it's going to be dry spell. Nothing to talk about. It really sucks.
Yeah. I mean,
next week, especially, just nothing at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So next, maybe we should talk a little bit about next week. Mando premiere Wednesday. Mando premiere breakdown Thursday. Bad Batch episode premiere Wednesday. Bad Batch episode discussion Saturday. Yes. So doing two shows. Let's hit my microphone stand. Doing 2 shows. So on Thursday the 2nd, we'll record the Mandalorian breakdown, so they'll be in your feeds on Friday the 3rd. And on Saturday the 4th, we will record the Bad Batch breakdown, and that'll be in your feeds on Sunday the 5th. So there it is.
Plus a day, all of that for Australians.
Exactly.
Just plus a day. Exactly.
And as always, all this is subject to change. Things might get moved around because life gets in the way. As much as we wish all we did was podcast Star Wars, sometimes other things have to take priority.
Very much like last week when Dominic saw the episode at 3 a.m. We might want to do a podcast at 4 a.m.
Well, really, I mean, if it's Mandalorian, we could start at 3:35 or 3:36. You could be ready to go. Ready to go.
Was that 44 seconds to get ready?
Or even earlier, if they drop the episode like 5 minutes before,
Well, they fixed that for Bad Batch.
Yeah,
they fixed that oddly.
Happening.
Yeah, it's been right on the.
Damn it, Bob! Hour. You had one job to screw it up and put the episode out early, and you started doing your job right. Damn you!
I mean, really, it's sort of hit the medium, right? Because originally, when Disney Plus first came out, it would hit just a little bit late. The episodes that you'd be sitting there, it would be 3:05, 3:06, 3:07. You're going, geez, where is that episode? Come on. And then they overcorrected, and you could get it like sometimes 10 minutes early. And now they're like, no, 3:00 on the dot, or really midnight on the dot. You're getting your episode. We fixed our problems.
You have to wonder though, also, this could crash Disney Plus. Like, this is Mandalorian coming back.
Yeah.
This we could be in some.
I mean, that's a lot of times when my theory about why they do that is they want to, they actually, have in different areas come out at different times, so not everybody's watching it at the same time.
Maybe. Or the other thing they could do is they could stagger Bad Batch and Mando a little bit. Like,
that makes sense. And then we don't have to choose which one to watch first. It'll be decided for us. Because I've had that problem with Andor and like Tales of the Jedi. I'm like, what do I watch?
Yeah,
I don't know what to watch first.
They could also pull an Obi-Wan Kenobi and just be like, oh, it's 5:00 in the afternoon. It's out now.
Yeah,
go watch it.
That'd be great.
You know what they would do with Obi-Wan Kenobi? They would wait until all of us have gone out for an all-day breakfast meal.
Yes.
And then they'll say, hey, guess what? The episode is available. You can watch it.
Mid
Like how we
pancake
were,
bite.
like how we were at.
You're totally confusing Hannah.
Yeah,
I was confused because I just ignored that.
Hannah was like,
the event I'm involved in, I won't go to that.
Yeah. This event we've been planning for months on end. Now I'm going to the premiere. I'll go
You
check it
can
out.
look. You can ask Jordan when we were sitting. I was sitting next to him when that was announced. I remember screaming, "No, no! The one time you could have any other time. You did it that time."
I remember we were waiting for everybody, to get their food and everything to be settled. And I was like, "Oh, we're chill. We can go all night." And then that happened, and I was like, "Okay, we got to go now because people are gonna start leaving and watching the episode."
Yeah.
They're not gonna want to watch us. And
It's
then
like
the new episode.
all of a sudden we're like, nobody tell anybody the episode is available. Keep them here in the second floor of this pancake restaurant because we need to do a podcast. Yeah, I think the people that had the best time were the ones that went to the pancake party, stayed until the end, and then went home and watched Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That was the combo.
Yeah. Or honestly, probably the people that went to the premiere, Hannah, Matthew, came to the pancake party and then went back to the hotels and watched the episodes again. Got to do it all.
Best of both worlds.
I could have done that. I had a gold wristband.
They kept their cake and they kept it too.
Yeah.
And then
we
they ate it.
kept our
as well.
pancakes and ate our pancakes too.
Oh man. What a good time. What a good time that was. All right. I think with that we can begin to wrap things up for this week. Just as my voice starts to go out.
Perfect timing.
Go, that's so good.
Wait, were you gonna get Dominic some water through the
I was gonna say, Dom, actually every time I have this water, I think of you. Because this exact water bottle I bought in the LAX airport as we were parting ways. You were boarding a plane to Toronto and I was boarding a plane to Sydney, and I was like, "Bye, Dominic," and then we were right there, and I bought this bottle of water at the airport.
God, I tell you,
that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was that day, that last day after celebration was over, and we're going to the airport. I had been so sad. And I was just like, I was feeling so terrible. And I go through security and I'm walking down this hallway, getting over to where the plane is. And I'm just so miserable. And then I look to my left and there's Tyler and Loden from Chatter Squadron. And I'm like, oh my God, friendly faces. And I go up and I say hello. And they're like, guess what? Hannah's coming. And I'm like, oh my God, we get to continue the party for a little bit longer. And then, we just went to the bar in the airport and we got to have we had like an extra 90 minutes of celebration. It totally it was exactly the perfect epilogue to the whole weekend. It was fantastic.
And you guys taught me how to tip.
Yes.
Because I hadn't been tipping anywhere. Wow. And I'm like, is there a receipt I gotta tell them something?
Why am I doing math? Why am I doing math at the restaurant?
10% for 7 to 80. Oh, jeez.
And really, you should be tipping at least 15%.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of systems that are broken, welcome to America, where we don't pay our service staff enough.
Hold the book up. Hold the book up.
Okay, what are we doing? Oh, yes, closing out our podcast.
Really fitting that I was wearing a red shirt today. Just saying.
There you go.
Viva la revolution. Sorry.
Oh, my goodness. At the SWU is where you can follow us on the social medias. And we'll be back again. Same time, same place with another episode and with a bonus episode on Saturday as well. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting.
It was my pleasure. As always, great fun breaking down that episode. Which, like I said, one of my favorites from this season. You know, it's the two-parter, it's the Crosshair episode, and it's that one. Those three have just really knocked it out of the park. And I think at least two of them have both been directed by Stuart Lee. So I want to shout that guy out because he's a guy that's been around from the beginning with Clone Wars, and the fact that he continues to deliver on such a high level is just speaks to the level of talent that he has and the level of talent that's involved in this show. So shout out Stuart Lee for some phenomenal episodes this season and in all the previous seasons. But yeah, I don't really have anything to promote this week. I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion in about 7 days' time when we start talking Mandalorian and continue talking Bad Batch. It's gonna be a lot of fun. See y'all then.
And you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always, and yeah, it's as a wise but evil man once said, this is just the beginning.
You can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. And Hannah, thank you for hosting.
Thank you so much. Great banter and memes today, as always, as we viciously disagree on Star Wars episode reviews. Love it every time. And yes, my plug this week has to be Mando Madness, which is my 4-day special of live streaming, building up to the Mandalorian, to the counting down days of live streams. So it's gonna be super fun. We're gonna play some Lego Mandalorian. We're gonna make some Beskar cookies, and then the countdown show, which happens 2 hours before the premiere drops, is gonna be wild. We're gonna have guests and trivia and cocktails. It's gonna be wild. So yeah, get amongst it for Mando Madness week on the Raeside.
Awesome. Of course, you can follow Hannah on social media at the Raeside. For those listening, RAE side is how that is spelled. If you are watching us on YouTube, please punch that subscribe button, Chewy, and
it has to be lapel that subscribe
that subscribe button. And huge thanks to Joel and all our other great listeners and watchers on YouTube who super chat with us, and all the channel members that help us out as well. And that's definitely something you can do to help us out and support us financially. And greatly appreciated to everyone who reviews us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere else that lets you do a review, especially anyone who's not in America. It's always great to have reviews from around the world. That's really cool. We enjoy reading those. So thanks to everybody who reviews us everywhere around the globe. And as always, the SWU Network Discord is where you can continue the discussion throughout the week and get involved in other things that we do, like community events like game nights and movie nights. So make sure that you follow the link in the description of the podcast episode or YouTube video so that you can join the SW Network Discord. All right, that is it. We are out of here. We'll be back in 7 days' time. Until then, I'm Chris, and for Dom and Hannah and Ben, may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.
A spectre is haunting Europe. The spectre of communism